What's number 4 for you?
Ooh, wait, let me look at my list here.
Or
So
your
I got,
4th
trying to think.
one? I know.
Okay. So my fourth one, I'm trying to think which one should I pick? Okay, so I'm gonna go with who I think is
Mm.
the greatest R&B group of all time. Um, The Temptations. I mean, come on. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
suspense. There's no suspense there. You know what I mean? Oh, can you agree? Okay, good. I'm glad you agree with me.
Best vocal group ever.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They laid a foundation down for the groups to come afterwards. Man, the Temptations were that group. Um, Easily, Motown's greatest R&B group probably ever. I mean, the Supremes had more success. They had more number one hits, but the Temptations were the group, though, in my opinion,
Yes.
because they got it right vocally with the leads and everything like that. I feel like the Supremes didn't get it right with the leads, but that's a whole
I know
different
what you
podcast.
mean.
We had actually discussed that,
We
prior
did.
to this one. So I'll save that for later. Um, but yeah, man, the Temptations. Even when David Ruffin had left the group, they went back in the lab in the early '70s. And then they did "Just My Imagination." Probably this is easily my favorite Temptation song. And they have a lot of really good ones, but "Just My Imagination" is definitely their best one. Dennis Edwards does a fantastic job, stepping in for David Ruffin. Some people would argue that he was even better than David Ruffin. That's up for debate. I don't know how you feel about that, but um, I'm not quite sure I put him up there. But I don't feel like they missed a beat when he stepped in, though. I'll put it that way. They
I don't
didn't
think
really
they
miss.
did either. And I don't
Yeah.
think
So
David Ruffin could have handled the material they got with Dennis. That was Dennis material. Like the
yeah,
psychedelic stuff, that was Dennis material. That's
yeah.
not David Ruffin material.
Yeah, but you still had Eddie Kendricks, you still had Paul Williams doing the bridge and everything like that, and then you had Otis, doing this, the second tenor, and then Melvin, obviously. So, but so I mean, you still had all the other moving parts there, to go along with Dennis. Um,
Yeah.
so it was they were still going to be successful regardless. But yeah, just my imagination, it's just so smooth, and just the opening vocals of them,
Yeah.
it's perfect. And then when they hit the climax of the song, you hear the drums in the background, and it just kind of builds on top of that. Just an amazing song. I love the way it was crafted. I love the way it begins, and I love the way it ends. It's a great song. That's my fourth one right there. Just my imagination.
Yeah. It's a really nice story song.
Yeah,
It's got a good story to it. I agree with you. It's very well constructed. And of course, at that point,
yeah,
prior to Too Many Cigarettes, Eddie Kendrick could sing the phone book Time, News, and Weather, and we'd buy it. And
yeah,
we did.
yeah,
Um, yeah, great, great voice. And of course, I don't know that there's ever been a better baritone than Paul Williams. Um,
yeah.
just amazing. He does a version of For Once in My Life. It's the only way I need to hear that song.
I know
I
them
have no need of Stevie's anymore. I really don't. What's that?
as fighting words, but we'll see. I'll be the judge of that.
I said what I said. It's on it showed up originally on the In a Mellow Mood record.
Okay.
But that version's a little busted. You really want the version from TCB, which was the television special that they did right around the same time.
Yeah,
That's significantly better. The one on In a Mellow Mood is an edited disaster. It's not as
yeah,
good. But the TCB one, you can see it on YouTube, like the live with the video and everything. It's it's definitive.
yeah.
It's treated as a ballad that way, and that's Stevie's version is very nice,
Okay.
but he ain't Paul Williams. Sorry.
Ooh,
I
we're gonna
said
have to
what
go
I
back.
said. So it's
Yeah,
that good. If you listen to it, I think you'll agree because it's just so far and it's
I'll
it's
have to
so
find it on
far and away
YouTube.
better that yeah, you need to.
Yeah, and I think Norman Whitfield, he wrote this too for The Temptations, Just My Imagination.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was him before he gave way to the psychedelic stuff and had them all pulling their hair out. But at that point, yeah, he was kind of giving them what they wanted because they wanted some ballads and he
yeah,
gave them what he wanted. Then because at that point it was like, who gets control of the temps? Is it Smokey or is it Norman? And they were trying to outdo each other at that point, trying
yeah,
to get control. Because if you can get control, then you can get the money from the publishing and you get producer
yeah,
credits and things of that sort. and Norman
When
won.
did when did so when did Norman come into the picture? He wasn't there when they first started, was he? When Motown first got off the ground, was he? He
Oh
came in a
no,
little bit
not at
later, didn't
all. Yeah, it
he?
was
Okay.
later. Yeah, he would submit things, but then Smokey would one up him. He's
Okay.
like, nope, the Smokey keeps the temps. And then with Just My Imagination, it was like, yeah, okay, I think we need to have a changing of the guard here. And so
Yeah, because
once
they
he
were,
got
yeah.
control of the temps, then he went off with Psychedelic Shack and Cloud Nine and all this
Papa
other
Roach,
stuff,
Rolling
which was
Stone.
clearly
Was
very,
he
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
same thing.
okay.
Barrett Strong and Norman Whitfield. It was all
Yeah.
clearly very Sly Stone inspired. That's where the
Very
sound came
strong.
from.
He did
Money,
That's What I Want.
yeah,
Um Money,
money,
That's What I Want.
yeah,
Yeah.
with Barry Gordy, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Barry, haven't heard that name
That's
in a while. Very strong, yeah.
yeah. He was the co-writer on all that stuff.
He just
All
died recently, didn't he?
I think so. I don't think it's been
Yeah,
all
okay.
that long since he passed away. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
because he was wasn't he one of Motown's first artists? I want to say Barrett
yes,
Strong.
yeah. He was one of the
Okay, I
first
got
ones.
you.
Him
Yeah,
and Jimmy Ruffin, I believe. Yeah,
yeah.
and then frankly David himself, because David was signed to Anna at one point, which was a sub
Okay,
label, like Gordy was, and a couple, and Tamla, a couple of others.
yeah,
But yeah, yeah, that's a really really nice pick because it was like Just My Imagination was kind of the end of an era, really, for them.
yeah,
One that they wouldn't visit again. That was kind of like the last gasp of what we knew the Temptations to be. And then their sound completely changed with,
yeah. Because
with
Papa was
Cloud
a Rolling
Nine.
Stone wasn't because Papa was a Rolling Stone doesn't feel like a Motown song that would have came out 5 years prior. It doesn't. It feels like it would have been too controversial for the '60s.
Oh
But
yeah.
as R&B was moving into a more what's gonna say political, living to a more political direction. That made sense for it to come at that time. So
Yeah. 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 It could only exist when it did. And the instrumentation and everything, and the fact
yeah,
that it's basically just, well, it is. It's just one chord. That's all it
yeah,
is. And
yeah.
it goes on forever and you don't care.
I
It's
mean, the
just,
first 2 minutes of just nobody singing.
yeah. You don't, and do you turn it off? I don't.
No,
Like
I don't.
it's a whole experience. But it just, yeah, it's a brilliant song. And
Yeah,
so Just My Imagination was kind of, it's a very interesting pick. And I like that you picked it because it's very much the end of an era for the Temptations,
yeah,
one that they wouldn't really ever go back to.
yeah.
So yeah,
And
very
that's
cool pick.
unfortunate. That's unfortunate because I feel like they had more of that in them too.
They did, but I like where they went. I
Yeah,
kind
I
of
do
like
too.
the
Yeah,
twists and turns that they took. And I mean, you still
yeah,
got things like Firefly out of them, which is really pretty. And
yeah,
you still got a song for you out of them. And I mean, there were still ballads, here and there sprinkled
yeah,
throughout, but like Just My Imagination was the end of that kind of ballad.
yeah.
So I have if you go to the website, kids, you can go to, you'll see every Temptations album ever released. Like they're all there. So go have a look. I love the Temptations. I'm so glad you did that because I hated that I didn't have a Temptation song in my picks. So I'm really glad that you did that. I feel so much better. It almost
Hey,
felt like an act of betrayal.
I feel like that too, man. They got so many artists. I'm like, man,
I know.
I'm gonna leave them out. I'm gonna leave them out. I'm gonna leave them out. You know what I mean? So
We're going to. We're doomed. We're
yeah,
absolutely doomed. Somebody's going to be unhappy. And if you are, I promise you we are too. So tell us in the comment section. Um, okay, so here's my
oh
number
man.
4. So I had to have a Stevie song. Had to.
Okay.
But what Stevie song do you pick?
Oof.
The odd thing is, it didn't take me long to get here. Um, I went with Golden Lady.
Interesting.
Um, it's such an odd song. Um, Stevie knows chords. He's not afraid. Like if you listen to like "You Are the Sunshine of My Life," that exists entirely in the Lydian scale. It's
Yeah,
weird that
yeah,
chord progression that gets you into the chorus of the tune is so bizarre. It's
yeah,
jazz. Um, and Golden Lady is too. Golden Lady is jazz. I love the way it begins with this piano solo, and you think you know what it's gonna be, and then it just kind of stops cold and goes into this really cool groove that you
And
don't
that's
see
such a good. That's
coming.
such a yeah. Golden. Yeah, and that's hard to narrow down with Stevie because Stevie is he's got what like 50 or 60 in the boat, man. This dude, Stevie, he's like when I think about musical prodigies, he's the first person that comes to mind, you know.
Oh
And that
yeah.
could be a little bit biased because that's my favorite artist of all time. But that's a good pick though. I like Golden Lady a lot.
It's such a great tune, and I love the end of it. I mean, let's think about this, kids. Without Golden Lady, we don't have Love on Top by Beyonce. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
Golden
facts,
Lady goes through modulation
facts.
after modulation. It goes through, I think, like four of them before it finally fades out.
Yeah,
And it just, he has no problem with them. He sails through all of them. Um, I love the fact that by the time they get to the B section of the tune, his vocal is doubled. I think it gives it a really cool sound.
hmm,
It's really smooths it out, and it sounds amazing. I love the fact that he's the drummer on it. Um, he plays everything except the percussion and the acoustic guitar. Those are two other people. Ralph McDonald, you mentioned him before, is the percussionist. I
yeah,
forget who the
okay.
acoustic guitar player is, but the rest of it is Stevie. I can't remember the name of the acoustic player. There'll be a picture over here. So, I mean, over here. It'll be right there. I'm looking at it now, but I'm not. You got to do what you got to do in post. But yeah, sorry. Um, but yeah, it's such an amazing song. It doesn't do anything you think it should do. It violates every musical rule an R&B song should have. And I love the fact that it does it. It comes off of Intervisions, which is an amazing album. The whole thing is great. You haven't done nothing. My gosh. Um, Don't You Worry About a Thing is on that record. It
Yeah,
just
don't you worry about man.
Yes. There's a version of it there's a version of that song by Jacob Collier.
Oh, he did that. He dove into that one too.
He broke it and I love it. But and that all comes from the same record that gives us Golden Lady, which to me
Yeah.
is and there are so many Stevie songs you could pick and none of them would
Oh,
be
so many
wrong,
albums you
but
can pick.
yeah,
He might have
whole
had the greatest.
albums.
He might have had the greatest album run ever.
Yeah, 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 I agree. And that, for me, Songs in the Key of Life is just like that's the standard by which all albums must be judged. If
Yeah,
not
for me,
fulfillingness too,
I go
frankly.
back
But
and forth. I go back and forth. It's either that or it's what's going on, Marvin Gaye. Those are the two where I'm constantly, kind of going back and forth on.
fair.
Yeah,
Those are fair choices. Yeah. Great
yeah,
and all coming from the same record label. Just from
yeah.
two
Well, Motown.
artists fighting Berry Gordy, you get this. Like
Yeah,
just amazing, amazing stuff. And for me, I mean, as far as Stevie's concerned, although there are others that are very, very close, Golden Lady's about as good as he got, just because it's
yeah,
so completely out there. It's just like the nerve. Like
yeah,
the nerve of him to even try stuff like that to get and then better yet to get away with it because that
yeah,
song was never released as a single and yet everybody knows it.
yeah. That yeah, good point.
So yeah, Golden
Yeah.
Lady number 4 for me.